We will quickly go through just some of the areas of where we attempted to go and completed last week, so it will be in proper context. And the second chapter, we understand that Jesus shifts from the verbal testimonies to the physical testimonies and starts his public ministry. As you know, chapter 1 deals with his words, but chapter 2 deals with his works. He ministers now publicly and continues that from chapter 2 all the way through chapter 12. We talked about these three aspects last week. We talked about this party, this wedding party, the wedding problem, and then the wedding provision. We didn't really complete the provisions, and that's what we will deal with today. But before we go there, I want to make sure that we understand this Passion Week, saints of God, because that's what we are about to embark upon. His promise, his price, his pain, and the power. Of course, I'm hoping and praying you're meditating on how that applies to you. We'll talk more to that in a few moments. But this wedding provision spoke to signs, such as the wine, and symbols, such as the containers. But then there are elsewhere other signs or symbols, such as yeast in circumcision. I want to make sure we understand that in the context of this lesson. So let's just briefly recap the wedding party and why that party was so important. Jesus was helping us to see that when he embarked upon his public ministry, he's letting us know that a small town wedding with a small group of people was very important to him. That friends and family is where he decided to start his first public ministry of miracles. So what does that really mean? It means that you and your family are very important to God. That's what it means. It means that God intervenes even in what may be viewed as small matters, such as wine at a wedding. And if that is where he embarked upon first, wouldn't that mean that he cares about you? And I would say all about you, because God is concerned about all matters, whether small or large. I think it also speaks to the fact that you can go to the Lord with anything, no matter how small it may be, or it doesn't matter how large it may be. I think he's trying to tell you that you are very important. And so I think God is interested in wondering to what extent is our relationship distant with him or intimate with him. He is saying that we can go to him for any reason, just to talk. I wonder, have you ever thought about that? That God is not interested in pomp and circumstance, in form and fashion. And yes, there was a place of solitude that Jesus went to pray. Oftentimes he did that. But that doesn't mean that you can at all times. You may not be able to. And I don't believe there's any justification that says you have to be in a specific place for God to hear you. Say amen. He says, come unto me. He didn't say, come unto me in a small place or a place of solitude. All of you who are burdened down and heavy laden. He said, call upon me in Jeremiah, and I will show you great and marvelous things that you don't even know. And that calling upon him is wherever you are. And so when we dealt with the problem from that wedding feast, there were two aspects of it. One, we realized that only Jesus could fix the problem. No one else could do it. And even though it was a small matter in the scheme of things, it shows that that still was important to Jesus. The second aspect of that problem is that Jesus wasn't obligated to focus on his mother's request, but to his mission to people. Remember, he said, "Woman, what do I have to do with this?" And he wasn't, as we explained last week, being disrespectful, but he was placing distance between his natural mother and his heavenly mission. And then the final aspect is the provision. And we understood that traditionally people brought out the best wine at the beginning because people are inebriated and they don't know what's going on at the end. So they saved the bad wine for the end because people couldn't tell the difference. But the MC saw the exact opposite. He said, "You save the good, expensive wine for last." So why did Jesus do that? Why did he keep this party going with wine? Jesus said, or John said that Jesus said this, that it was the first of his signs to make known his glory to his disciples who believed in him. This word miracle, by the way, is the Greek word for sign, and it means a distinguishing mark, as this wine was. This was the first distinguishing mark of his deity that he performed in a public ministry. And he was showing that he had authority over physical things, over the material world. And it helped to establish the foundation for his disciples. But what other distinguishing marks or signs was there beyond the wine? What about the containers? And what about these other symbols such as yeast and circumcision? I want to talk about that because I told you that one of the greatest books to start off with, if you really want to know the Old Testament, is to start off in the Gospels, and in particular, the book of John.